Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Adam Rowley with Adam So Fun, and you're back to busting up borders. And this is part 4. Part 1, 2, yeah, part 4. So in our first episode, we took this little cute panel quilt and we did an edge to edge inside the borders. We didn't want to stitch out on the sides, and I showed you how to do that edge to edge inside those borders. In our second episode, we chunked them. In real life, do I chunk a border? No. But you can always go back and watch that video, Chunking Borders in the Busting Up Border series. And we actually chunked this outside border, this little polka dot border. In our third episode, we tackled cornerstones. So I took this little block border, we added some cornerstone units, did an edge to edge on the inside, we did something fun and used not your traditional design that you'd pick for an edge to edge. So that was that one. I actually haven't finished that one because in that video I'm going to turn the quilt. But in this video I'm also going to turn the quilt, and I didn't want to turn the quilt and then turn it back and then turn the quilt and then turn it back. So we're going to do this first, the first kind of part of these two borders, because both of these are going to be borders that I turn. Before I turn the quilt, and then we'll turn the quilt and we'll finish both of these. But you'll still see the end of this video, and that end already played, but so just so you see, like, there's not stitching in there, that's why. So today, we are going to tackle how I do borders. This is my number one way I do borders if I don't add a cornerstone. We're going to use designs that wrap. So we're going to have a corner design that's going to wrap that corner. We're going to do something edge to edge in the center of it, or a continuous line in the center of it, add our other corner. We'll advance, we'll do the same thing at the bottom, and instead of chunking, so I'm not going to be placing pieces down that border, we're going to turn the quilt, we'll come back, set our area, we'll do kind of the top and the bottom again with just the inner pieces, and we'll be done. It's so much, well, to me, it's so much easier than chunking because there's not any math. You set an area and skew it if you want. I mean, it's that easy. So thanks for joining me. As always, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you're notified when those new videos drop. And if you don't already, follow me on social media. I'm Adam So Fun with an SEW on Facebook and Instagram, where you see a lot of other things that don't actually land here. I do Facebook Lives. We have the So Fun community on Facebook. Make sure you join that, where you can ask some questions. And it's all about positivity all the time. It's 2022, and my motto this year, everything's a thumbs up. Everything's a like, everything's a beautiful, gorgeous, stunning. All those words, just because it's been a rough few years and we just need a little positivity. So without further ado, I'm going to bring that camera in close, and we're going to get started on doing borders, wrapping those corners. We'll see you back here in a second. All right, here we are at our quilt top. Like I said, we've already done our interior stitching. We've already stitched this cornerstone, this border piece, and this cornerstone. This isn't done yet because we're going to turn it. We've also already stitched, can you see out here, this outside border, because that's the one we chunked. So that one's actually fully done. So now we're going to work on this inner border. So whenever I stitch the ditch, because I did stitch this whole thing first, I decided these two little stripes right here, the dark gray and lighter gray, were going to be counted as part of this whole border. So I stitched here, and I'm just going to, whatever border design, I'm going to have it fill the whole thing. I'm not going to worry about it being two different pieces. I just didn't want this little strip to strip there. I also did the same thing out here, and if you watched the last video, we talked about that. So both of these side borders from the block piece and the stripes border, both of those are going to be done after I turn it. But what we're going to do in this video is we're going to wrap the corner with the corner design, wrap that corner, and stick something in the middle. Probably a design that goes with that corner design, but let's see what we have. So let's turn you up to our Pro Stitcher. We are using Pro Stitcher, so I'm stitching regulated mode in cruise at 175. This is my favorite way to stitch when I'm using Pro Stitcher. And we'll jump over to the Pro Stitcher side. If you did watch one of those other videos, maybe the first, I think the chunking one and the edge to edge one, I was in the previous version of Pro Stitcher. I had not updated yet because I keep forgetting to do it. Well, I remembered. So I updated for the cornerstone video, and now we have the updated version, and it's going to be so much easier. So if you did watch the chunking video, things are going to be so much easier now that I have the new update. So first, file, design, open, and let's go open a design that we're going to use in this little tiny border. So I'm going to start with triangles because I want to find, or with a corner, sorry, because I'm going to try to find a corner that I also have a design in continuous line so everything matches and we can match it up nice. And most of these HQ designs or the PS designs, if you've updated, have a corresponding corner to it. So we've used flowers a lot, so maybe we'll just use flowers. So I use flowers on Parade as my chunking border. I don't necessarily want to do that again because we've seen that one already. What about these little daisies or the cornflower? That might be a good one. Actually, we're going to do apple leaves. I love this apple leaf design. I use this one a lot, usually in class. I don't do a lot of borders. Oh, those tulips are pretty nice too. Apple leaves or tulips. Here, this is when I turn into Dora the Explorer. Apple leaves or tulips, everyone. What do you say? Now, if you said leaves, like these leaves, I would take that too. Oh, actually, I kind of like those. Let's do this leaf and spine. Leaves with spine corner. I'm going to open it up. So now I have my corner design. I also am going to need the corresponding edge to edge. So file, design, open. I will go to continuous line. And that was called leaves and spine. Fingers crossed we have it. I know we have cornflower. There's our daisies. Let's see. A, B, C, D, E. I can see people walking outside, and I was getting distracted. Leaves with spine. There we are. Ooh, that would look good too, but those aren't different. All right, so now I have my continuous line. So this is what I'm going to use in the center part, and I have my corner. So I have my designs. We need our area because we always start there. So let's go to our area tab, and I will tilt you down. I'm going to be, because there's a diamond right here on my multi-point, if you have an Amara, a Forte, or an Infinity, you have that corresponding button on your handlebar, and we can just use our handlebar button to ding around this. I'm using my laser light at the needle, and I'm just coming, you don't need the whole thing. I just come down a little bit. I love that ding. When I create areas, I would call it the dinging around. For those of you who are on Facebook, you'll know that I got a new puppy recently, and Ben just took him out. So if the screen is pointed up at the right time, you might get to see little Ozzy Posborn. Well, not if the screen's right in the way. I wonder if I move this over a little bit. No, you're not going to get to see him because he's behind the screen. But whatever. We're here to watch. We're here to do corners and borders. So here's my top edge. I know these are different sizes. That's fine. We're just making this for placement. This is just our area for placement. We're not using it for anything else. So first step, I will deal with my corner first. So usually I'm going to come in and I'm going to kind of drag it and drop over where I need it. And then next step, we'll go to our Modify tab, Resize in the ribbon, and I like things to stay proportional. So I am going to turn my lock on, and you'll see we have a horizontal line because we have width selected. If I select height, you get a height line. That line tells you that if you increase or decrease, it's going to go the way that the line is. So this is up and down, this one's left and right. When you turn the lock, you're going to get both of them. That's showing you that it's going to increase or decrease together. And I'm just hitting the minus button down here. I don't know what size I need it, so I'm going to resize it, put it in here. That actually looks pretty good. Now, I tend to do my borders. I usually ditch stitch all my borders, so I tend to do my borders not touching the outside. I mean, we could go a little bit bigger, but I also want to like be able to do more than one repeat here. So I'm gonna go a little smaller. Now, if I wanted to move this, I could use my finger, but that is not as accurate as some of the other functions we can. If we want to be really accurate, we can go to Modify, Tab, Reposition, we can use Nudge. And these arrows will move it around, and maybe we'll just do it like that. Sometimes I'll hit drag and then move my machine and hit drop. But let's say we really like that. That actually looks pretty good. I mean, not gonna lie, I'm digging it. So, I'm moving this out of the way. So we have one corner done. And so now we're going to File, Save, Selected, and I'm going to save this line. And I do have a file on here. There we are. And this is going to be clear. I'm going to say L corner. So now we have the corner design saved because we're going to need that. We're going to need that a few more times. We want to place this corner. So we're going to go to Edit, and I'm going to hit Duplicate because that's just going to make a copy for me. And I could mirror it, but then the leaves are going to go the wrong way. So what I usually do is I just go to Modify, Rotate, and over on my sidebar, I'm going to rotate it until it looks correct. Oops, I went one too far. I'm just hitting the 45 degrees. I can use my finger, move it over. Now, because this is a corner, we want to make sure that the start point here and the end point here are on the same plane. We want to try to get them as even as possible. So what I can do is I'm going to select the design. I will move my machine to the end point. Are y'all with me? Everybody see that? I'll zoom in to see if I can zoom into just this. That's as close as we're going to get. But my machine is on the end point. So do you see how I have my horizontal line? So if I now hit my select tool and select my other corner, I'm going to go to reposition because, again, if I want to be accurate, I'm going to use the nudge. And first thing, I'm going to look at spacing here. I want it to come out a little bit. And then now I want to bring this down to be in line. And now the end point and the start point are totally lined up. We might just have one repeat. This is a smaller corner, so sorry. This might be a little easier than we'll have to do some editing on when we turn it, but this might work pretty quick. So now we have our corners set. If you want to baseline these, you can. It's not super important at this point because we've really only shrunk it and turned it. We haven't done anything crazy to it. Now I'm going to take my leaf design, and I usually I'm going to set it right on top, go to Modify, Resize, have my lock on, and I shrink it until I get it about the right size. If I need to, I can turn drag. And that's pretty good. I might need one more. That is pretty good. So that's how I usually resize my designs. I'm going to hit drop because I have some type of frame of reference. So now I'm going to File, Save, Selected. I have that, just that design. And we're going to call this one Center Leaf. So now I'll hit drag so I can move it out of the way. And I'm going to bring my machine back to you. I'm going to do some stuff with my fingers. Again, I usually don't do things using my fingers just because I don't want to accidentally move the wrong thing. We can undo, but undo does not always work. It usually works, but not always. So let's see. I'm going to eyeball where that end point. So there's that end point. See, that's why I don't do it with my finger. Undo. There we are. And it's somewhere right there. Now, I already know that we're going to have an issue because look at that spacing. So at some point, we're going to have two leaves that tilt down, and guess what? I'm okay with that. Sometimes you just got to make do. But first thing first, we need to add another leaf. Now, there's a few things. I could stretch this out if I wanted to and have it go the whole distance. I don't really want to do that. I could shrink it down so I do get two full repeats. That's fine. Again, I don't really want to do it, but let's see what that would look like. So I'm going to my repeat. I have my center selected. I just need one repeat. Because I'm using the new Pro Stitcher, the 537, it's going to bring them in point to point, but I best practice and I'm so used to it, I always hit point to point anyway. I will baseline. And now if I wanted to shrink those together, I could come modify, adjust my width, and I could shrink them in. But see how it's gonna make it look weird? Because it'd have to go even smaller than that. That actually doesn't look too bad, but it's definitely not what I'm looking for. So, let's see, drop. I'm gonna do this the easy way, and I'm going to close selected and just reopen the center leaf design. We'll drag it back where it goes. All right, so now we have it. I'm gonna repeat it. So I just closed it, reopened, starting fresh because I knew I didn't want to do that. I'll do my one repeat. I'm gonna hit point to point, and then I'm gonna baseline this. So let's look at this really quick. I'm gonna zoom in. Oh my gosh, I just did it again. We all do it. I'm going to zoom into these two leaves because I wanna make sure the start and the stop point are gonna be in the right place. So here's that. That's pretty close. If I bring this one up just a bit, so modify, reposition. The easier way to do this would be to move my crosshairs right on the end point. Those are pretty close though. Move my crosshairs to that end point. So what I want you to do at home, I guess I should do this. It's just hard to see because I'm moving away from the camera. I'm gonna move my crosshairs to the end point of my first design, select my second design, and then modify, reposition. I'm gonna hit start point, and it will stick it right where it needs to go. Now it's exactly on point. Now let's go look at the other side, because this is where we're gonna have to do some stuff. So if we look, we have this line coming out from, so we have this extra leaf pointing up. And that's the one that we're not really going to be able to use. And then we also have this extra arm coming out. So what I want to do is where these two arms connect, I want those, I want kind of this little interaction. It's not going to flow as good. I'm okay with that because it loops out, jumps out of this leaf up there. So what I'm looking for is I want the start point from my second corner, which is what's selected. Let me zoom out. I want the start point of this piece and the end point of this one to be in the same spot where those two designs overlap. So I'm going to zoom in so we can see this up close. And maybe not zoomed in that far so we can see the leaf. So here's my end point. I have the center piece selected right now. I'm going to go to Pro Stitcher, New Start End, and now I have my columns over here. We have the start column, which moves the start point. We have the end column, which moves the end point. And then we have our arrows. These little arrows, the arrows at the top will move little tiny increments. The arrows under the scroll bar will move a little more increments. And then your jumps will move a jump if you have multiple designs, or if you have multiple jumps. If yours says umps, you're okay. Your sidebar is just not as wide as mine, so it's shrunk a little bit, so it says umps. Totally fine. It's not going to do anything. Just remember, umps are jumps. So I need to move my endpoint to here. I can move my crosshairs. Let me move my crosshairs to where I want my endpoint. Can we see that? Yeah. So I can move my crosshairs to where I want my endpoint. Just like if we broke thread. And under end, I'm going to hit auto. And then what do we always do when we're moving points? We're going to hit auto again to turn it off. All right. Now we're going to go to modify, crop. So modify tab, crop in the ribbon, start end, and that last piece of our, leaf is gone. Baseline, because we always baseline after a crop. Now I will select tool, pick my corner. I haven't moved my machine, so I'm going to go to Pro Stitcher. I'm already on New Start In. Under the start column, I'm going to hit auto. It moves that start point, and then I'm going to hit auto again to turn it off. Go back to my modify tab, crop, start end. And it cut off that little piece, baseline. So now, if we look at this, let me move these crosshairs out of the way. I'm going to come down here and hit select all. We have this continuous line. I'm interested to see how this interaction looks. Not the smoothest. I mean, we could probably, if I sent this over to Designer, I could go in and smooth out that line, probably make it look a little bit better. There are 2 leaves in a row. In the end of the day, you are not going to notice this. If someone is looking at your quilt and they notice that 2 leaves are facing the same way and they bring it up to you, get a new friend, okay? If they're family, sorry, you're stuck with them. So I picked all my pieces. I hit this button down here, which is select all. I always go to my workspace tab, or my sidebar tab, which says workspace. I've selected them all, so I have a group. And I always make sure it's stitching the way I want. I know it is because there's no jumps, but let's see. Here's our first piece, that's our first corner. Here's our center, looks perfect. Here's our other corner, that looks great. Now I'm going to baseline these. And I have this whole setup. This is where I'm going to come in, File, Save, Selected, and I do this as my top group. Clear, top group, save. Did I spell that right? Now I don't even remember what I saved. Yeah, top group. Okay, so, oops, we'll select it again. Now we're going to stitch this out. Fingers crossed it looks good. Actually, you're not even going to be able to tell because look, there's a lot of stuff going on right there. Oh, I need to put a bobbin in. All right, I changed my bobbin. Let's get to stitching. Pro Stitcher, have to be in Quilt and the ribbon. Everything's set, run, and proceed. All right, so it's done. I'm going to do a little tie off. And I gave myself a little spot so I can see where that end point is, because that's where I'm going to have to realign when I turn my corner. The other side, it's easy to see because we have an actual start point. So now the top is done. We've done our corner. That actually doesn't look too bad. We've wrapped. Good. We are going to advance. I'll be right back. All right, so we've advanced our quilt. I put my side clamps on. Everything's ready. First step, I need to make my area. So remember, we can only have one area at a time on our screen. So I'm going to go to my area tab, hit clear, and now I'm clear to make my next area. And you can start your area wherever you want. You don't have to start on one side or the other. I usually start wherever I'm standing. Sorry if my big old face was just in the way. I'll crop that out. All right, so here's our design. Now, some people will flip this. And again, if you flip this, your leaves are going to be going in the wrong way. So I'm going to go modify. I'm going to rotate, and we're just going to rotate it all the way around. I think you have to actually flip and mirror, and to me, this is just as fast. And we are fingers crossed lucky because this actually fits. I'm going to hit drag, and most of the time, your design is going to fit in here. It's going to fit perfect. Sometimes things might be a little wonky and it might not fit great. I think one of the other videos I had to do some editing to it, and it didn't fit. Oh, I think the cornerstone video, I don't think my square corners were square. But that looks pretty good. Actually, that looks great. So guess what? We're just going to drop this, and I'm gonna stitch it. I'm gonna start here, it's gonna stitch all the way around, and then we're gonna be done with the bottom. And this is one of the reasons I like to do it like this, because once you've set it up on one side, you're done. So we're gonna move it to near the start point, Pro Stitcher. All of my selections are good. You can't see them, but it's just saying, are you sure you wanna do all this stuff? I am. Resume. All right, so now this one's stitched. Again, this doesn't have a real end point, so I just stitched out off the line a little bit so I could see it. I mean, there's other things you could do. You could place a marker, you could do whatever you want. That little thing is not noticeable on this quilt, so it's gonna be okay. And I have to tell you, this interaction that I was worried about and I wanted to see what was gonna happen, when it stitched it out, I actually had to look to see if that's where the two pieces met up because it's so not noticeable. I didn't even see that the two leaves were facing the same way. I just knew that that was the interaction. So now the top and the bottom are done. So now it's time to turn, and this is what you've all been waiting for. I'll be right back. All right, everyone, so this is what you've all been waiting for. The top and the bottom are done on both ways, the square corners and the wrapped corners. Two different videos. I don't know which one you're watching, but this part is gonna be in both of them. So the sides are done. I need to unclamp, take the quilt off of the frame, and we're gonna turn it and reload it. So I'm gonna take off my bungees. I have my magnetic clamps I've made. Maybe I'll make a video for that. Undo my ratchets. I am using zipper leaders, so I can unzip. Watching not to poke myself. And this is the most satisfying thing of everything. When you're done with the quilt, you're going to just grab it and pull. We're also unzipping here. Mr. Ozzy Posborn is soon going to have a quilt. So now I have my my quilt done, or not done, but what I can do done. I'm going to take my pins out. Now I have been getting people ask me about the zippers. I am loving these zippers. The downside, like of everything, you're still using pins. Some people will stitch based on their machine onto the zippers and stuff. I'm just not a fan of that. I felt that it was taking me longer to do that than to pin. And I'm still pinning, but I'm not pinning at the machine. Like, I'm sitting here talking to you, and I'm on my, sorry, I have to think of what I'm doing, or these are going. So this is the bottom of the quilt, so I'm going to put this one here. We'll load the top first. I'm not standing at my machine and pinning, so I can pin anywhere. I can watch TV with Ben, and I can pin on the couch. Oh, and this, oh, I know what this panel is called now. This is by Michael Miller, and it's Buddy Bear. So again, I bought these panels maybe 2 years ago or so off of Connecting Threads. But it is a Michael Miller fabric, so you might be able to see them still. I do have a dog somewhere. It's floating around here. But yeah, a good practice panel. There's probably other panels out there like it that would work really well. Especially if you're wanting anything with a grid on it, you could practice borders on. So this is my top, so I'm going to hold this one here. All right, so this is what the panel currently looks like. Toro. This is what the back looks like. So you can see where we've stitched and where we haven't. So you can see that I have these borders open. Again, if this were real life, if this was a real quilt, I would have done a zigzag stitch through this thicker border, And not necessarily through the thin one. The thin one's small enough, but the thicker border I would have just, not tight, not like densely, but ran a little zigzag to hold it and to keep it from shifting. So now I am going to turn my quilt. And what I mean by that, this is the top and bottom. I'm literally going to turn the quilt. And now this is going to be my top. And the bottom side is going to be my bottom. So, for this to work, for it to work well, you do need to square up your backs. So just keep that in mind when you're, before you load something, if you have something with borders, because you're going to need a straight edge on those backs. And it's much easier to do it before you have the quilt on than after. I'm just finding my center point and adding a pin. I'm going to do that on both sides. I have Cyndi Lauper stuck in my head because Ben's watching Never Been Kissed. Alright, so now I have my centers marked on the top and bottom. And I pin better when it's away from me, so I'm going to turn it around. So this is my top, and I'm standing like as if I were standing behind the machine. I'm going to grab my zipper. And on the zipper, this is why I get them only from the Quilting Connection. This is the quick zip system. Backing fabric, bottom left side. Well, this is the bottom. I want the top. I must have not been paying attention. Oh, I wasn't paying attention. Oh, you know why I thought this? We talked about this in that square one. But I was looking at the quilt like this. I thought I had the bottom. Or I thought I had I thought I had the bottom because the people were right side up. But really, remember the top row's upside down? Dumb. All right, so I got my other zipper. And this one says, not that side. Backing fabric, top left side. So this is my top. My top left side is going to be over here. And I usually lay the zipper out. My zipper has the center marked. My pin is center marked. And I try to lay the zipper out so it doesn't shift. There's my center. I'm just lining things up and putting my center pin in. And Angie at the Quilting Connection taught me don't overpin, because that's when you get ripples. So I do pin a lot less now, or use a lot less pins than I used to, and I already didn't use a ton. I left like a 1/2 inch space, and now I'll do like 1.5 inches. Angie, if you watch this and I'm leaving too much space, let me know. But the other thing with this is, remember, even if this is a big quilt, even if this is like 100 by 100, the rest of the quilt is stabilized. You've already stitched it. So as you're working through this and pinning this on, you don't have, like, things aren't shifting. You're basically reloading a finished quilt. It just has a few strips that you forgot. Well, you didn't forget them. You forgot them on purpose. You are going to have that one time you take the quilt off and then you look at it and say, oh, I forgot something. That happens. You can reload that quilt up. I reloaded a quilt that had a binding on once. It wasn't the funnest thing to do. But just depending on the application, what you're doing, what it looks like. I had to, based on like a leader, I called it my loading leader on one before because I had trimmed it. And I'm just like, I'd rather just based on something than pin through the whole thing. I still do have my red snappers, so sometimes I'll just snap those on. Alright, so I have one side done. Swing to the other side. So this is my top left. And this should be pin to bottom left. There's my center mark. I've been so busy with different projects, I have stuff all over. And usually I would have my table clean and it's not clean. So I can't use my whole table because the table's not clean. It's a travesty. But you know, when you're home for 10 days, you got to make the most of it. Other things that I can talk about. I'm going to finish pinning this. I'll see you right here in a second. All right, so now we have the top and the bottom pinned on. We're ready to reload. And since I'm using the zippers, I'm just going to zip them on. There's one side. Oops. And if you have zippers, make sure when you zip it on, you're not just zipping it on over here. We need to go under, well, depending on how you're loaded. I need to go under my bar. Make sure my leaders are rolling nice. Put my leader grippers, which are just so tight magnets. And that's how easy and fast it is to flip your quilt, load it back on. Even if I was pinning at the machine, I would still pin here or snap it here. Whatever loading system you're using, it's not that hard. And there's no math. So if you watch that chunking video, I don't have to worry about like, is this gonna fit? Is it not gonna fit? How many can I do in my pass? I just reload the thing. And you're gonna see how fast it is once it's loaded. It already is. How fast it is to line those designs up. So we're gonna see you back here in a second in whichever video you're watching. All right, everyone, so we've turned the quilt, we've reloaded. I actually went in and I finished filming the cornerstone video. So now we're going to start at the bottom because that's where I am and I don't feel like rolling up to the top and come back down. So we're going to come back in here. I'm going to bring you close. We're going to fill in the section that we still have to fill, advance up, do the same thing, and we're done. So this is why I like to turn my quilts. The turning process really doesn't take that long. There's no math involved, and you're going to see how easy it is to do this border when you turn it, and you're going to be like, okay, so yes, I'm going to start turning my quilts. You know, the one thing about that is if you have a frame that doesn't accommodate turning the quilt, you're going to have to chunk it. You're going to have to find a different way to do it. I have a 12-foot frame, so that rarely happens. Even 10-foot frames rarely happens. Maybe some of you with the Moxie or using the loft frame at 8 feet, or even having a studio frame or a gallery frame set up at 8 feet, you might have a few issues because you only have the 8 feet. So you only, 84 inches or so to deal with. But just make something that's 83 inches long. That's your max. But we're going to bring you close. I'll see you in a second. Okay, so here we are. You can see that I already stitched this border. We did that one first because that's the video I made first. But we're going to stitch in between, here's a start point, and here's a start point because I did that extra little stitch. So we just have to fill in those areas. This is going to be so simple and quick because really we're just going to create an area, skew stuff into it, and then be done with it. Unless we have to do a little more editing, but we'll find out when we get there. So I'm going to move you over a little bit because I have to create my area. So I'm going to my area tab. You've seen me do it the whole time. Now, when I create this area, I wonder if I can zoom in. Not to that. Oh, there it is. Is that? Yeah, so right here, this is where it starts. When I create this area, I use my start and my end points as my guides to where my vertical edge of that area is going to be. So if this is my start point, I'm on my area tab. Oops, let's see. If this is my start point, I'm on my area tab, and I'm going to do my first ding. And then I go straight up, and now I'm going to multi-point around this. Now when I get over to the other side, there's a little stitch. This is my end point. So I'll bring my machine to my end point, or I guess this will be a start point, whatever, to where I need to connect, and I come straight up, and this is now my vertical line for my area. Now something to take note, my vertical line starts here, but this leaf comes in. That's okay because there's going to be a connector into that next leaf. Swing back around to the other side. Oh, I'm going to zoom out. I forgot I had zoomed in. And I'm going to finish this, so we're just going to go up to the screen so I can finish this really quick. So there's our area. That's what we're dealing with. We are going to File, Design, Open. And we want to go into my Atoms file. And we want the center leaf. So this was the top row. This was the orientation. So I need to turn this because we're basically doing the bottom of the quilt again. Because we turned the whole quilt, we're going to have to go to Modify, Rotate, and we're going to rotate it all the way around. Oops, I went too far. We're going to swap starts and ends, baseline, because right now there's, in the new Pro Stitcher, you have to baseline when you swap those starts and ends, just so you know. I will move my machine to my start point. Turn it down so you can see. So remember, our start point was right here. I'm going to move my machine where I want it to start. Look at our screen, and we want to reposition start point. Now I want to repeat. We're going to repeat across this. Let's see. Ding, ding, ding. Point to point, and we'll baseline this. So remember, our end point, I have to see how this goes. Because our start point's where we want it. I'm moving over to our end point. I'm going to turn you a little bit. That's where we want the end point. Is that right? Oh, we're going to switch this. Sorry, this is my fault. We're going to put the end point here. We're not going to worry about the start point. We're going to put the end point here because we need the connectors off of this one to jump into the next one. So we're going to say modify, reposition, end point. There we go. So now this is going to work. We're going to come to the other side. This is a start point, which this has to hit the top of a leaf, or this is, I'm going to show you what we're going to do. All right, so this is my endpoint. What I want to do is I want to shrink this, because we're going to have to shrink it. Sometimes it's not going to fit. We can take one leaf out, so we're going to take one leaf out, but we want to shrink this until this curved line is right where my crosshair is. Okay, so first thing, let's see. I'm already there. We're going to align horizontal right, because now it's going to hold it over here. Oops, you can't see. And sometimes this is what you do. You're just going to work with it. So I'm aligned to the right. So I'm going to resize. I'm not going to change the height. I only want to change the width. And we're going to shrink it until the lines are crossed. Does everybody see that? Now we're going to go to Pro Stitcher, New Start End, And I want to move that start point to right where my crosshairs are. Going around. Zoom in really close. Perfect. Now we want to modify, crop, start, end, baseline. And now we've set up this design. I do one last check. I check it here. I know that side's right because I was just on it. I'm going to check it here. You can't see. This is the one thing about doing borders, you have to move back and forth. That side's right, so let's stitch this out and then see how it looks. All right, so now this one is done. Everything's looking good. We do have 2 up leaves here, but that's okay. We don't have to worry about that. And now we're going to advance or de-advance so we can get back to the top. We'll be right back. All right, so we've advanced. We're gonna do the same thing. I'm going to close my area or clear my area. Here's one of my endpoints. So I'm just gonna start creating my area here. Can you see that? Yes. There's my start point. So if we look at our screen, we still have the row that we did on the other side. Usually I create one, modify tab, rotate, flip it, and now we're going to swap those starts and ends again. Baseline, remember, add the new version. Since we're here, I'm just going to put my crosshairs or my needle on the connector point where the end point needs to be. I'll reposition end point. That looks good. Let's slide on to the other end. This is where the start point needs to be. Let's see how close we are. So this one's going to need to be rotated a little bit. So I'm going to actually move the start point to where it needs to be first. And I can do it about here. Well, I wasn't very good about getting... Well, I didn't create my area very good. But whatever. So there's my start point. Let's swing back over to see where that end point is supposed to be. Actually, because we came back over, I was trying to zoom the camera. Let's zoom. This is where my endpoint needs to be, so I'm just a little bit over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Pro Stitcher, New Start End. I'm just going to move that endpoint up to where my crosshairs are now. Modify, crop, outside, baseline. So I'm outside that area, but again, I just didn't create my area perfect. That's fine, it's just a placement line. But now this side is done and we can stitch this out. Again, this is why I turn my quilts. To me, it's just so much easier. You create that design once, you stitch it, it's done. You advance, you do the other side, it's done, and then your quilt's done. So I make that final step when I'm doing something with borders super easy for myself. That is it. That was the final step in stitching these out. I just can't get good lighting. You just can't get good lighting these days. Oh, there we go. That lets us see them a little bit. So there's my leaves. So we've done chunking, cornerstone, wrap the corner. We also wrapped on the chunking and did the center section. We'll be right back. All right, everyone. So that's it for the Busting Up Borders playlist series, I guess. We've done the whole panel quilt. We did borders 3 different ways. We stuck a design in the center where we didn't want to crop it. We've actually done a ton of stuff. Hopefully you got a few tricks. Maybe you know Pro Stitcher, you're like, oh, I knew how to do that. Hopefully you picked up a trick here or there, maybe something with a line or rotating, I don't know. But as always, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you're notified when new videos drop. I do try to put a new video out every Friday. If you haven't already, follow me on social media, AdamSoFun with an S-E-W, where you get a lot more content that doesn't reach YouTube. I do weekly lives. I try to do weekly lives. What else do I do there? Oh, you just see more photos. You see more photos and things just that I don't have time to make videos for. I feel like there's something else. We'll be back next week with something new. I'm not sure what it is because that next week is like a month away. So until the next one, at the end of the day, it's just quilting. We want to have a good time. Happy 2022. Let's keep it positive. You're all beautiful, you're all gorgeous, and you're all stunning. See you in the next video. Bye, everyone.